I love the intro music to both shows so much.
I do too, as I was headbanging.
Well, I don't know why there's like a lag when the intro ends, and so I'm sitting here and I'm going,
We're here.
hello.
Hello, everybody. This is Michelle with Michelle Barone with Moksha Grace Coaching with
Chris Barone of Wicked Wisdom Consulting, and we're here with another episode of Shockingly Delightful. What's today's topic, Michelle? Oh my gosh, your name says Krista. Let me fix that while you're telling us.
blocks, barriers, and other bullshit. Beep, beep, beep. Yeah.
Now you're back to being Michelle. There we go.
I can, I can go by Moksha. You can call me Grace. You can call me Shay. You can call me Shell.
Right on. Well, where would you like to start with today's conversation? And if you're tuning in, make sure to make a comment and let us know that you're here because we can't always see that.
Yes.
And join along in the conversation. But go ahead, Michelle, kick us off. Where do you want to start today?
Well, we could start with the other bullshit, but we should probably kind of just talk more about what blocks and barriers are. Some people say having barriers are a bad thing. I remember actually having someone tell me, like, no, you shouldn't put up a barrier. And I was like, well, for that situation, I should.
I'm going to pause for a second. I just thought of something.
Yes.
What if we do
Yes.
blocks, barriers, and other bull beep in our respective fields? So you talk about it in the like as a coach and with your clients, and I'll talk about it from an operational business standpoint, and we'll kind of see where that conversation takes us.
And then I think the people that are watching and tuning in can talk about blocks and barriers and bull beep.
We can probably just say bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, we are adults here. Bullshit. It's even a card game, by the way.
That's true.
But yeah, I think that would be fun, and I think that when you're listening, definitely tune in and mention some blocks and barriers that either you're dealing with or you would like a suggestion about. Because let's face it, that's what we do. And I want you to start. But this is funny because this just happened. I had somebody on my schedule for a call, and they said I should probably wait until I actually have a computer. That is a block, a barrier, but it also could be a little bit of bullshit depending on what kind of coaching they wanted, because if they wanted emotional coaching, having a computer, we could have found a different way to talk.
Interesting. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it's funny because this is kind of coming up a lot in my conversations this week. Ironically, I was actually literally 10 minutes ago was just on a call with somebody, a networking partner, and we were having conversations about blocks and barriers in the coaching and spiritual world, and those blocks that keep you from charging money at all, because, well, if you're spiritual, you shouldn't be charging any money. Or what's the difference between someone who raises their prices? Like, where's the line when it comes to making money as someone who's a coach or you're in a spiritual profession, like whether it's tarot readings, mediumship, Akashic records, something with crystals, any of those kind of modalities. And, where are those lines? And it was really nice to have that conversation because we both were coming from a really cool place and really cool perspectives. And, one of the things that I said to her was something that I notice a lot in the coaching world and with spiritual professions, is it's all about intention. It is so much about the intention and where you're coming from.
Yeah.
You know, her point was, well, as you know, as we grow and we get busier, we may need to raise our prices and whatever. And so how does that differentiate from someone who's, you know, raising their prices from a more negative place? And I said it's so much about the intention behind it.
Right.
In order for you to deliver your services effectively, appropriately, and to the best of your ability, you have to be mindful of yourself, for your energy, your time, your resources, all of those things. And in order to do that, you have to keep your schedule at a place that allows you to do that. And so how it typically works is as your schedule gets busier, you raise your prices a little bit to help keep your schedule at a manageable place. That is very different than raising your prices than I'm doing this specifically to get the latest car, to get the latest beachfront house, to get I want the money for me with no respect or relevance to who you're serving. So the block and barrier of, well, I shouldn't charge anything because then, you know, I'm doing a disservice. No, you're actually doing a service to yourself. That's a block that you have to work through. But when you're doing it from a negative place, which is I'm doing it just to seek, you know, money for myself, I'm doing it from an egoic place to say that I, you know, that I brought in this amount of money, that's a very different place that you're coming from. And that no longer is about the client. It's no longer about the work. It's no longer a pure intention of helping others. It's very much from a place of how can I serve myself? And that is a big, big, big distinction and something that I see all the time.
Well, and what came up for me when you first started talking about this is, you know, spirituality, and a lot of people will lump it with religion. So let's just play with that for a minute. Is church free?
Not with the pressure you feel when that plate comes around.
So,
I mean, technically, this brought up something great. Don't let me forget.
So you walk in, and I did this one time when we were when I would go to church and with kids, and we were tight on money, and it was, you have to become a member of the church, you have to give your tidings, right, which is a fee. You have to give you're kind of expected to give tidings.
Not expected. Everyone is going to judge you and consider you a recluse, or not a recluse, an outcast if you don't.
Right. The plate comes around at least 3 times, if not more. When you walk in the church, at least in the church that I went to, you always lit a candle, the candles, and then, of course, the kids that you're with, or the people that you're with, want to light candles. So I figured it out that back in the day, and this was like 28 years ago, it cost at least $30 to $50 just to go to church, which is not a ton of money, but then multiply that by month, right? By month, you know, monthly, weekly. Yeah. And so then it becomes like what back then would have been a car payment. And it was like, well, wait a second. I want to just pray. Like, I want to be in the house of the Lord, you know, like, and so when you think about it like that, and then you take a step back, what does it take to keep the lights on at the church? It does cost money. What does it cost to order those candles and to have the candles there? What does it cost to have a cleaning crew come? Because no one wants to walk in and see a bunch of schmutz and things aren't, you know, cleaned and wiped down. And what does it cost to have the coffee and the potential cookies after church? So there's this give and take, right? It's an exchange of energy. You're going to church.
Yeah.
And you're receiving, and then they're receiving, and they're also giving. So if there's this flow of the giving and the receiving and this exchange, that's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, and that leads me into what I was going to say, you know, with those in the spiritual profession who feel like they can't charge anything, this is something that me and the gal I was just talking to talked about. The people who don't charge anything, I'm less likely to get a reading, get a service done, whatever with that person because I'm not exchanging any energy their way. So now I feel like, well, I don't want to ask them for too much because I'm not giving them anything back. And that makes me feel icky. And B,
Right.
a lot of people do like, oh, well, it's donation. But what does that mean to you? Because does that mean you're expecting something when you say that? And so just tell me what it is that you're expecting because I don't know if that means $5, I don't know if that means $50, I don't know if that means $300. And so now I'm spending the whole reading appointment meeting thinking to myself, well, what do I pay? What do I give this person? Right. Or even worse, the people who don't tell you ahead of time and now you're going through the whole reading going, what am I going to owe this person? That happened to me once. And literally the entire time I could not even listen to anything this woman was saying because all I was thinking about was, what if I can't afford this?
Right.
I don't know. I realized I didn't ask her. I didn't even ask what she charges. What if I can't afford it? And so how many missed opportunities are you experiencing without even realizing it because you're not charging anything and therefore that makes someone feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same principle of when you go to like a farmer's market or something. I'm going to spend a lot more time and buy from the booths that have their prices just out front and center. I can see what everything costs. I know what is expected of me versus the ones where the person's going, hi, can I answer any questions? Oh, well, if you want to know how much that is, let me know. Like, I don't want to get stuck in that situation. Just tell me what it is. And I'm either going to be happy with it or I'm not. But if you're not telling me, then I'm going to feel uncomfortable and I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah. There's actually studies where like if you have to pick something up and look underneath at what it is to, you know, what the price is, you're less likely to buy than if, like you said, the price is front and center. But I also think that there's to your point of what you're thinking during the session, whatever session it may be, but also are you committed to applying said knowledge or suggestions that you got in the situation when there isn't an energy exchange? Because then what did you put into it?
Right. Well, and that's why
there's no skin in the game. That's what they say. There's no skin in the game.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same principle that goes along with, like, you can read a book and it can be the most inspiring thing to you. You do everything it recommends, and then a month later, you're not doing it anymore. Because you don't have, there's no, exactly like you said, there's no skin in the game anymore. You paid your $9.99 or $15.99 for the book, got its money's worth, and now it's not sticking anymore because you move on, you read another book.
Right. Exactly. And that, and so not only are you blocking and creating a barrier from you doing what you love, right?
People.
And potentially your purpose here in the world, but you're also blocking and putting up a barricade between you and someone else getting what they need from you if they're drawn to you.
Absolutely. And it's so ironic, isn't it, that you think you're coming from this place of, well, I'm not going to charge anything because really it's because you feel bad or you feel guilty or you feel like you shouldn't. Otherwise, you
or you're not worthy.
Right. But let's just say you're coming from a place of, I want to be able to help everyone. I don't want anyone to feel like they can't get my services. Well, you're unintentionally setting them up to not get your services. Energetically, you're pushing people away who otherwise would be eager to use your services.
And you're also not helping them step into their power to get resourceful to make things happen.
Correct.
Great example of this is, and I go back to my husband telling me this story. He's told all of us where, you get off the expressway and there's always, the homeless people that are standing there with a sign, looking for work, haven't eaten in 3 days. And God bless my husband will roll down the window and he has water and he used to carry around like apples or, fruit with him. And he'd say, jump in. I need somebody to work for the day. Like, here's water, here's some fruit, jump in, I'll pay you. for the day.
He doesn't do that anymore because it's a little risky, but
Right. Yeah. But the point is that they didn't want any of that.
mm-hmm.
And so they didn't want to step into their power. They just wanted a handout, or just wanted, they didn't want necessarily the help that was being given.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
right.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that goes right along with the people, if you're offering a service for any price and someone is commenting that, oh, that's so expensive, or even a product or something that you make, oh, that's so expensive to you. All you're doing with that comment is reiterating that you cannot afford it due to your circumstances.
Right.
For example, I used to spend a lot of money on different readings and spiritual services and coffee mugs. The amount of money I've spent on coffee mugs, oh my God. And I pulled back a little bit over the years, given the economy and wanting to prioritize some other things. And one of the mug creators that I follow the other day, a bunch of her comments were, oh my God, that is way overpriced. Oh my gosh, that's so expensive, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It is about what your priorities are. It's about what you're willing to spend on something. That is your own journey. That is your own preference. But that is somebody's time, that's somebody's energy that they put into that.
Mm-hmm.
But to feel the need to say, oh, wow, that's so expensive to you,
right,
not to everybody else. I would happily pay that. Even if I didn't have the money, I would look at something and go, wow, that's a steal for that quality and that workmanship. And I mean, wow, I still do that.
Right.
Because it's about respecting what people are offering. And if you can't afford it, no problem. And if someone's making you feel bad about that, that's a whole other conversation. But we're just talking about people that are just living their best life offering services.
Yeah.
You don't need to compound the issue and reinforce to not only yourself, but the entire internet that I can't afford that.
Well, and that's a great block barrier and bullshit.
Absolutely.
In coaching, clients will say, I need this, or I need that, or this is how I want to be able to work, or this is what I want to feel, or, something like that. And yet they're not willing to invest in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the ROI? Mm-hmm. If you're going to pay $5 for something and expect like a certification, and that you're going to learn a lot, versus investing in someone who's actually taken the time to learn, or whatever the situation is, it's also, you get what you pay for. And that's huge. Yeah. Don't go to the dollar store and expect to buy some china that is going to last in your, and you're going to leave it as a legacy to your grandchildren. That's not going to happen.
Right.
But if you're using it for a party, then it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the first thing that came up for blocks and barriers and other bullshit is money blocks. And I think that's because it's so prevalent, especially right now, given our economy and what's happening in the world. Is there's so much money fear that's happening right now with everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you are rolling in it, there's some level of money fear that's happening.
Yeah. Renee said tithing is a Old Testament requirement. Instead, we Christians are called to give freely from the heart, not under any pressure. Yes.
Technically, yes, you absolutely are. But my question is, does that actually translate to the entire congregation appropriately? Because yes, absolutely. That is 100% what it is supposed to be. And I am so happy and thrilled for you if your congregation really truly holds to that, because the one that we've been to, there, there's some energy there that you can sense if for those that don't put anything in the plate. But if I'm so excited for you if that's your experience, because that's fantastic, and that must mean that your congregation's really doing the work.
Right. And I remember even going and saying, like, I'll volunteer time. Like, for me, time, that that's an energy exchange. Like,
Mhm.
I'm happy to volunteer. I'm happy to, work, volunteer in the office, or, and they were like, yeah, no, that's not good enough to get your kids christened here. And I was just like, what where am I? Like, what is this? And that was the first time, that was probably the first time that I walked away and just said, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
going to attempt to
and
do
let's dive into that. So that tells me that the intention
that. Mm-hmm.
was not from a pure place.
Right.
The intention was, I just want to make money. Not there's a lack of intention of helping people and being there for people, because trades are valuable exchanges.
Absolutely.
So that says a lot about the intention behind the individuals and the place of business, let's be honest.
Yeah. And I think a lot of businesses and, operations, I think that is a great way that if you are starting a business and you can't necessarily afford someone to set up a website or help you with, integrating things, if there's some kind of an exchange that can take place for the beginning stage until
Yeah,
you can, you're up and running, I think that makes a lot of sense. Um,
absolutely.
just like I've seen other coaches hire their clients that have
Mhm.
what they need, have the
Yeah,
experience that they need to help them with their business. And then in exchange, they get coaching.
yeah.
And, those are energy exchanges that make sense.
Mhm.
That's bartering. I
Yeah,
mean, that's old fashioned bartering.
yeah.
I've got some eggs and
I need a glass of milk or a cup of milk.
I need some milk.
Yeah,
Can we barter here? Can we,
right.
and I hate to tell you people, but it's that kind of mentality is coming back strong. So you better
Good.
start thinking about what you have to offer to people. And, I'm not talking about bad things or X-rated things, but what you have to offer to people. I know, leave it to me to go that way. That you can exchange. Like I used to volunteer with the PTA, and how long did I do that? Years. And
Mhm.
I was president for probably 5 of those years.
Mhm.
I put in thousands of hours for that school year.
Mhm.
And I remember being really, really proud of myself with my list, because I used to keep the list of all the hours. And I was so proud of myself. I was like, yes, I hit however many hours. And I remember saying to your father, like, cool. And I remember him looking at me and go, now multiply that by minimum wage.
Oh, I think you've mentioned this on the show before, either this or Moment of Presence.
And I was like, holy moly.
Mhm.
Yep. I did that. To me, there was still that energy exchange.
Yeah.
I was at the school, I was around,
Mhm.
where you kids were. I wasn't the helicopter mom that had to know like what you were doing in class or anything, but um, I was involved. And
Mhm.
I was there because I didn't work, and there were other moms that had to work and weren't there.
Mhm.
And so I kind of felt like it was my duty as a mom to be kind of like a community mom to whoever needed it. Um, and I got to do that at that
Yeah.
time because I was a stay-at-home mom, and I thought it was pretty darn cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to definitely talk about things that aren't related to money too, because this isn't just
Yes.
money blocks and barriers. So what are some other blocks and barriers and other bullshit that you see with in the coaching world in terms of your clients?
Yeah, I've done that.
Huh?
Yep, I've done
Oh,
that.
oh. I was like, wait, what do you mean?
Yep, I tried that. I did that. Yeah, I tried that. It didn't work for me.
So I'm
Mm-mm.
hearing a lack of coachability through defense mechanism, through blocks against trying things.
Right. And it's also, sometimes it's about being surface level and not being willing being scared and fearful of diving deeper.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a block because, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I mean,
Mhm.
that's just rehashing. And
Yeah.
it's like coaching isn't about rehashing.
Mhm.
Coaching we may look at things that have happened in the past just to see what the lessons were there, the information we could gather,
Yeah.
shift a perspective, but we're not going to dive into, let's put you emotionally there and no, that's not what coaching is. Coaching is
Yeah.
about moving forward.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I think I have a good example of this. Years ago, we were talking about something, and you were sharing a story from your life, and I had said to you, and this was way before. I mean, this is I think before even your corporate career in healthcare, and you had said to me like, "Oh no, I'm plenty over it by now. No, I don't need to go back in," because I think I was probably maybe I was going through I was in therapy at the time, and I probably was like, you should talk to a therapist about that because I bet that would be really helpful. And you're like, no, I'm good. I'm totally fine. Like it's way from the past. I don't need to go into it. And then it came up in your life and you had to reprocess it again. And it wasn't until many years later, but it was like you finally were at the point where you were, I guess, ready to would be the
Mhm.
word. Um, but there's always more layers to things. And by us refusing to look at them, that in and of itself is kind of a block and barrier.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And it's blocking you not just from processing whatever it was and learning the lesson, but
Mhm.
it's also blocking you from your future
Yeah.
without the weight
Yeah.
of whatever it is that you're carrying with you.
Mhm.
And so that's a huge one.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. You don't have to bring all of that baggage.
Mhm.
Oh, see, another B word. Blocks, barriers, baggage.
Baggage and other bullshit.
Um, but you don't have to bring that with you. You don't have to carry it for the rest of your life. It's
Yeah.
not, what do they say? It's not a sentence. It's
Mhm.
a moment of time. It's
Yeah.
not a life sentence.
Yeah.
Um,
I do think it's interesting though, and it even ties into the story I just said about you, but there's literally been times where I think you've said to me like, "Are you ready to let that go yet?" And I know it's a block, I know it's a barrier, but I also know I'm not ready to let it go yet. It doesn't feel right to me.
yeah.
I'm not in the right place to let go of it yet. And I think that's a really interesting part of the process is really honing in on when like timing can be a big factor in when you're ready to process something. So it's not just about trying to blow through and process all the things that have ever happened to you, but about allowing them to come up in the right time.
Right.
Because if you're not in the right space or you don't have this is the second week in a row that there's a giant iguana in the tree right outside my window. I'm so sorry. I just got distracted. Um, if you're not at the right time and place to process that, you're just going to have to do it again
Right.
because you weren't in the right place to let go of it.
Right. And it's not meant for you to dive into that at that moment.
Right.
Because if you force it,
Mhm.
you're only going to get again to the surface level
Yeah.
because everything else is locked inside of you under lock and key,
Mhm.
and you haven't gotten the key yet.
And
So,
you exactly, and you the key might be a realization. It might be a perspective shift. It
mhm,
might be hearing something in just the right way where it hits you differently that causes a perspective shift. But there's so many factors that go into it. And I'll
mhm,
never forget when I got coaching by a coach that we both got coached with. Tongue teaser there. There was a trauma processing process, I'll call it.
mhm.
And I sat down one day and I was like, I'm gonna think of things to go through this process with. And it was the worst thing I could have done because all it did was bring things up that I was not ready to process yet. And I had like a total like sobbing session because I wasn't ready to process it yet. But I was trying to force it to happen quicker and to go through things quicker, and I was not ready for them yet.
Right. Well, and I can only imagine that process of, let me sit down, and I'm not making fun of you by any
I
means,
know, you're fine.
but I know people that have
You're
tried
probably gonna be spot on, yeah.
this process where it's like, let me sit down and think of like all the ways that I suck and all the things I need to change about myself. And it's like, let's make a grocery list. And it's like, what the heck?
I'm laughing because I've done this. I'm not laughing at the people who have also done this. Trust me, I have done this. But yeah, I
I've
mean,
done it too.
I literally sat down and was like, how have I been traumatized in my life? Let me make a list and let me figure out like what's most important to go through right now. And it's like, that's not no that you're actually creating a barrier to healing and a block to healing because you're trying to force it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're going to have a bad experience and not want to touch that topic again, which then is going to prolong it.
Heck no, you're not going to want it because you just forced yourself into
Yeah.
like this depression state where you just beat the heck out of yourself.
Right.
And told yourself how horrific you are, and no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, but yeah, I will say the coach did say to me when I told her about it, she was like, yeah, no, that's not what this process is for. That's not how you do this. But that real quick, that's the benefit of having a coach. Not to make this all about like why you should have a coach, but that's why a coach is so helpful, is in those moments they reel you back in. They bring you back to center. They restructure what you should be doing. They bring you back to where you need to be versus you just trying to aimlessly, walk around. Because I didn't tell her I was going to do this. Because if I did, she would have been like, yeah, don't do that. But after the fact, she helped me get back to a place of neutral and then go from there, letting me know, don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you think about this from the operations perspective, what are some other blocks, barriers, and bullshit that you hear from business owners or that prevent their business from moving forward? Like, what are their blocks and barriers that you have to sometimes coach them through?
Yeah. One of the biggest ones, and it's one of the hardest too, and I will give full recognition of that it is the hardest, is releasing control and trusting other people to help you.
Yeah.
That is something that's very, very difficult, especially for someone who has been in business a long time or has worked in many different businesses. Is they've seen a lot of people come and go. They've had people disappoint them. And so it becomes, or they've just been handling everything for so long that there's a real hesitancy of having someone come in and help them. And that is a big point of contention in a lot of businesses because, if you're able to tap in and hire the right people that feel good for you, they want to help you. They're eager to help you. They want to help the business grow. But if the business owner is holding everything close to their chest, or they're so resistant, something I've seen before is quite a few times is business owners can't know everything. I'll just set that right there. And so when someone does get hired to come in to help them, that person knows probably a lot more about certain things than the business owner does. That's why they got hired in the first place, was because of that expertise, whether it's, operation, marketing, sales, whatever it is. And what can happen is business owners are so used to doing everything themselves that the idea of that new person setting something up that they're not familiar with causes a lot of anxiety. And there's a lot of resistance to it because of that anxiety. And so they then feel the need to pull back and say, well, no, I only want it within this box. Well, but if you only keep it within that box, your company's only going to be able to grow to a certain point.
Yeah.
And so it's really working through that anxiety and those past experiences of being burned to be able to trust someone to help you and take on things from you. Because as a business owner, you're in the top dog position. You deserve to have the most time off of anybody. But a lot of business owners can't do that because that anxiety just absolutely takes over.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, Tia, good for you. I'm glad that you're starting something.
Nice.
And yes, starting something and being a business owner, you do feel alone. And so I strongly suggest that you get in with some networking groups, and definitely reach out to Krista and I, because we have a networking group, a couple
Yeah.
networking places that we go, that you don't feel alone at all. And it's it's fantastic. But going back to what you were saying, Krista, a good experience that I can give as an example is watching you come in
Mhm.
and helping the business owner
Mhm.
change a CRM, which is a huge undertaking, because
Yeah.
all of the information from all of the prior clients had to be transferred into this new CRM,
Mhm.
which is very scary, because, oh my gosh, what if something doesn't get transferred right?
Right.
What if the information goes into the wrong area, the wrong field? What if there's information that's lost? Like, that's scary. And I remember thinking to myself, how cool that this person just basically said, do it.
Run away. Yeah.
Here
Take
you
it away.
go. Do it. Just tell me when it's done. Almost like, I'm going to close my eyes and just tell me when
Yeah.
it's done, and I can open my eyes and be surprised. And it went smoother than expected,
Yeah.
faster than expected. And yet and being part of that business,
Mhm.
we also were up and running
Mhm.
in the new CRM, trained flawlessly,
Yeah.
and she didn't have to miss a beat
Yeah.
on her end of what she
Mhm.
was focused on, which was
Yeah.
coaching.
Absolutely. And while, yes, that's a huge testament to the work that I did, it's also a huge testament to that business owner's ability to let go
Yes.
and to trust somebody else to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what made it so successful,
Right.
because there was that room to explore and figure things out,
Mm-hmm.
to then figure out what is the best route, what is the best setup, what is the best way to do this
Mm-hmm.
to meet the expectations of what's needed.
Right.
Because when there's a lot of parameters and there's a lot of, blocks and barriers and other bullshit set up, you don't have that flexibility to be able to explore and test and figure out what works best. And so there's a lot of fun that's lost in the project, because listen, so a lot of people, something like operations is not fun. Same thing goes for sales or coaching or whatever it is. The people who find those jobs fun are the ones who should be in it, because those are the people like me
Mm-hmm.
in that situation specifically. That was so thrilling to me. And
Mhm.
that's why, between that and the business owner being able to let go of control, is why that project was so successful, why it got done so quickly, and why I was then referred out to a lot of other businesses to do the same thing for them, because of how well that was done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, that couldn't have been possible if that person didn't let go of control and
Right.
didn't stop the blocks and barriers from holding her back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, it kind of goes back to the conversation that I had last week about the book that I read, The Motive, because the leaders that are leading because they want to grow their business, or they want to grow their people, they want to help expand, they want to put something into that, versus the leaders that are like, no, it's just more important for me to climb the ladder. The leader that you were dealing with at that time was very much about expansion and growth, not just of her people, of her clients, but of her business.
Yeah.
And she was able to take that step back, take her ego out of it, and say, okay, I don't know how to do this.
Right.
I'm not going to try to pretend that I know how to do this.
Yeah.
I trust the person that I'm going to bring in to do this and do it well.
Right.
And then was open enough to allow you to get to know not just the leader, but the entire business, the scope, the vision for the future.
Yeah.
So you could set it up for success. It was so cool to be on the inside, but on the outside of that, to
Yeah.
watch that, because that's what leadership on both ends, yours and
Mhm.
how you took the lead in the project,
Mhm.
and the leader of the business,
Mhm.
how that meshed together. And it was really, it was amazing to watch.
Mhm. Yeah. And again, it was fun to work on because there was that flexibility. And I think that's really, it's so incredibly applicable and universal to any role. The people who are supposed to be in that role shouldn't need micromanaging.
Right.
They shouldn't need to be hovered. They shouldn't need to have blocks and barriers put up, because those, if that's needed, those aren't the right people for the role.
Right.
The people that are right for the role are going to be excited to do that job.
Yeah.
It's like the concept of, like, if we gave everyone in the world $1 million, no one would work. I don't believe that.
Right.
I don't believe
Because
that at
what
all.
would you do? What would you do?
People want to be useful. People want to be useful. People want to be helpful. They want to make a difference. They want to make an impact. They want to do all these things. And the people who don't feel that way about the job that they're in or the work that they do, that tells me that they're not in the right role.
Mm-hmm.
That tells me that they're not in the right line of work or the right field or demographic or whatever it is. It's more about them than the role.
So another block, barrier, and bullshit that comes up in coaching a lot is when someone, whether it's a leader or mid manager, whatever level you're at, you stay in the position even though you know that you should go,
Mm-hmm.
because your block, barrier, and bullshit is, one, the ego. I'm not going to let anybody push me out.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not enjoying your job.
Yeah.
So then why are you staying?
Yeah.
Or I'm never going to find anything else. Well, yeah, when you're not miserable and you are actually excited and happy about a future and something up and coming, the universe is going to open up for you, but
Right.
you have to be in the right mindset. So that mindset piece can be a huge block and a barrier,
Yeah.
and create
Honestly,
a lot of fears.
I would say mindset is the number one top
Yeah.
block, barrier, and other bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people don't believe that. They'll think like, "Oh, well, I have to go and I have to get degrees and I have to I have to go and get more schooling." I was talking to somebody the other day and they had so many certifications on top of like a double degree, and they were miserable
Yeah.
because they were accumulating
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff, but they had no idea how to put it all together to make it into a career.
Yeah. I would almost be willing to bet that they probably didn't even like the field that they were getting certifications in, but they probably felt pressured at some point to go into that field, and then they were already there and went, well, I guess I should continue, because what am I going to do? Start over?
Right. And that's another thing, is that people think that starting over means that you're starting over from the very bottom, like the very beginning, but you're not, because you're not a baby, you're not entry
Right.
level.
You're not completely inexperienced. You just need maybe a little information in that specific area, but you have value.
Right. You're just, that's what's called a pivot, people. You're pivoting. You're not forgetting, with the like the Men in Black, you're not having your memory erased of everything
Right.
you've ever accomplished in life.
Right.
You're bringing your wisdom with you. Do you need a little extra to get into that new role or that new area where you want to go? Great. Let's figure out what that is, and then let's get you there.
Yeah.
But the thought that I have to stay in this role because I've been doing it for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, how much longer do you have till you retire? Oh, it's like 15. Do you want to be miserable for 15?
Right. You know what this is all making me think, and we've actually already talked about this, is another major block and barrier is patience and lack thereof.
Yes.
Whether it's coaching in the sense of trying to rush through healing things,
Mhm.
or in the business world, something that's really big right now, I am hearing from everybody, Well, but how do I get people to see my content on social media? How do I get more clients? How do I bring people in? That's the process. Well, how do I do it? Like, I want more clients right now in the next 5 days. Doesn't really work that way. Like, there's a process, there's time. You have to be, there's a certain level of patience that you have to have. It just, the purchasing style of people has changed so much in the last 5 to 6 years. The process is so much more drawn out. It's so much longer. And so you have all of these people that they saw businesses get started 5, 6 years ago, and they think, well, I'm just going to jump in and do the exact same thing. But it doesn't work that way anymore. So there's brand new challenges that the people who are already established did not have to deal with. And so it's creating this really interesting dilemma for a lot of small businesses of, well, I need people to see my stuff right now because I need to make my money back right now. And so it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, it really doesn't. And so there's a big, big patience level that's needed.
And not just patience, but what did we just say is the cornerstone to everything? Mindset. If you're constantly thinking, nobody, nobody's coming, I'm a loser, oh, woe is me.
What's wrong with me that no
What's wrong with me? Right. Then you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Because that's what your mind is telling you, and what your mind tells you must be right. And that's the kind of energy you're going to put out. And then who's going to want to work with you?
Right.
You're a loser. Like, you're walking around with a big L on your forehead.
Are you about to quote Smash Mouth? With the shape of an L on her forehead.
You gotta take the L off your forehead.
Yeah.
And you have to, you're lovely.
Isn't that so ironic? We're the ones that slap the L on our forehead, which makes everything worse after that. We self-inflict our own wounds, and we self-inflict our own pain.
Yeah. And then we keep ourselves there.
Yeah. Because it's comfortable and we're used to it.
Right. We try to get up, and then we push ourselves right back in, and it's like, what the heck? Yeah. And that's why it's so important that even when you are trying to help somebody else, that you don't dive into.
Let me guess. Quicksand?
The quicksand. I was going to say they're bullshit, but quicksand. You want to be able to be with them in that moment, but don't absorb it. Don't trauma bond to them. Don't dive in and get into a bitch and stitch session either, because now you're getting into that negative energy.
Yeah.
Stay positive. It doesn't mean you have to be like that toxic positivity, like everything's fine, oh my gosh, but you can sit with a person and still maintain your sovereignty as far as your energy. And just be there with them.
Yeah.
If they ask you, or you can ask, are you open to hearing some feedback? But if they say no, shut up. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Because your way may not be their way. But it also doesn't mean that if someone's in a bad place, you just ignore them either.
Yeah. Listen, we're living testament to that. Our styles of processing, of healing, of talking things out, we are so opposite in so many ways. And so we've had to learn, how can we best support the other person?
Right.
And so for you, that's talking things out. For me, talking things out and some coaching. And for me, it's more of, I just need you to listen and I'll process it. And then I'll come back when I need your help.
Right.
And so it's very different styles. And originally we were trying to operate from our own style, which did not work. And so it's really learning the people that you care about, about learning what they need.
Right. And sometimes you can just ask.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Right. What do you need right now? Do you want, or even what kind of response are you looking for? Do you want coaching? Do you want empathy? Do you want feedback? Do you want my opinion? What are you looking for in this moment? What would serve you best right now?
Yeah.
And believe it or not, you know the answer. So if you're listening and going, I don't want someone to ask that, I want them to just know. Trust me, you would much rather ask and get what you're looking for, because you specifically are wanting something.
Yeah, you are. And it's okay
Mm-hmm.
to ask for what you need. And that's
Absolutely.
another block and barrier and bullshit, because
Oh,
we don't ask for what we need.
yep.
And we have to. And not only do we have to, but this goes back to the very beginning of the exchange of energy. When we're vulnerable and
Mhm.
we ask for what we need, we're now allowing someone else
Yep.
to give to us.
Yep.
And that was a huge lesson that I've learned over the past, I would say, year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
is being vulnerable and allowing, because I was like, oh, I've got to be that like strong person for everybody.
Yeah.
And it was like, but I'm not letting anyone in.
Mhm.
And I didn't
Oh,
realize, and I didn't realize that. I thought I was just being strong for everybody and, that peppy cheerleader for everybody. And oh, you mean I'm supposed to like let you know that sometimes I need a little peppy cheerleader, or you know, I need to be, some days I'm Tigger,
mhm.
sometimes I'm Pooh Bear, sometimes I'm Eeyore. And
Yeah.
sometimes I need someone to just sit with me as Piglet and
Yeah.
let me be Eeyore.
Right.
And it's a running joke, not a running joke, but it's a running sentiment between some friends and I, that's who we are for each other. Sometimes we're Eeyore, sometimes we're Piglet, sometimes we're Pooh, and we just, and I don't mean Pooh that way, Pooh Bear, and you just sit in the being.
Yeah. And I find too, because I having the personality and mindset and whatever that I do, I can have pretty heavy internal dialogue, and I'll lean on people. I've learned to lean on a few people a lot that I know and feel I can trust. And one thing that I've learned to do, so for those of you listening that you may feel like you also tend to have a lot of heavy energy, you tend to have a lot of, we'll call it, maybe crises that you're constantly putting on people, and it makes you feel a little bit bad. One of the things that I've done, and I don't do it all the time, I do it when I feel particularly called to do it, is before I vent to someone or talk to them about what's going on or whatever, I'll ask them, do you have space for this right now?
Mm,
And what that does is it takes the pressure off me to have to worry if I'm putting too much on them, because everyone has their moments. And I've had friends of mine say, honestly, right now, I really don't. If we can talk tomorrow or, whatever, but right this second, I really don't have the space for it. No problem.
yeah,
No problem at all. And honestly, that in a way makes me feel better in those moments a little bit,
yeah.
because there's an element of, I'm not the only one going through it, but it also is like, all right, suck it up, Buttercup. We'll make it get to tomorrow, and then we'll have the conversation. And guess what? By the time we go to have that conversation, it's not even an issue anymore.
Right.
And
That's
so
a that's a great, yeah, that's a
there's
great
something
suggestion.
really powerful in it.
Hmm.
Again, I don't do it all the time, but when I feel called to, it's usually, in my opinion, it's for a reason. And when
Yeah.
I do, that typically is what happens.
And I think those that work, that are listening, that work in offices, let's say, there's a lot of bitching that goes on around the water cooler,
Yeah.
and sometimes there's just times where the other person just can't take it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember one instance, somebody came in and they were having a really bad day and sat down and like wanted to unload everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was already having a not great
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And so it was so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't helpful. I
Yeah.
couldn't be.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but in those situations, a block and barrier is created, because now, because of that, and you've been overwhelmed by that person, what can happen often is now you have this unintended negative undercurrent with that person.
Right.
Because you got so overwhelmed, your nervous system got so overwhelmed by that situation that
Mhm.
now the next time you see that person, there's this weird energy thing that's happening, and you might not even remember why, but it just that person rubs you the wrong way all of a sudden.
And you duck and go down a different hallway.
Right, right. And so by removing communication blocks and having it be okay to say to someone, I love you so much, or I'm I'm a friend, and I always tell you can come to me, but right now I don't have the space for it. I
Right.
can't take it right now. I'm with you. I feel for you. I'm having one of these days myself, but now is not the right time for me.
Mm-hmm.
That can save so much headache and heartache and nervous system upheaval. It is unbelievable how that simple couple of sentences can change everything.
Yeah. And you know what that visually that made me think of
Mm.
Grey's Anatomy with Meredith and oh gosh, what was her name? The best friend. You're my person. And they would do the
I
seven.
know her as Sandra Oh, but
Yeah,
Christina.
Christina, and they would do a dance off. Like,
Mhm.
I don't even want to talk. Let's
Mhm.
just put on some really good music and like just hop
Yeah.
around or
Yeah.
something. Like, just we just need to let go of this energy. And it's very similar, strangely enough, as a dog when they come in and they shake off. They're
Mhm.
shaking off the energy that they
100%.
just absorbed. And
Yeah.
so sometimes, like, if you don't have the space and the person really needs you, like, go, you know what, let's just literally listen to some music and just like, yeah, dance it out
Go
and
by yourself.
yeah, let's see where we're at afterwards.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is good. This has been a really, really good
It has.
conversation.
It's
um,
actually so funny because I was looking at the time going, the day that because we, full transparency, right before we went live, I went, wait, what are we even talking about today? I don't even, so
me too.
it's hilarious to me.
Going. Yeah.
The day that we had the least planned this is like one of the longest episodes we've done. So that's
Yeah,
hysterical.
yeah. And Tia and Teresa and Renee, thank you guys for putting in the chat that you were here. I hope that the rest of you, whether you watched it live or you're watching it after the fact, please continue to comment because we do watch the comments, and we want to hear what you have to say. But we always are here for our viewers, the people that reach out to us. There's been times where I've gotten on into a conversation with someone after the fact of the conversation that we've had because they needed it continued or needed to go deeper. So that's what we're here for. That's why we do these, is to bring up things that aren't necessarily talked about and doing it in a shockingly delightful way.
Exactly. And because I don't know if you're going to bring it up, I'm going to go ahead and plug, as the kids say, your community that you launched a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
The Odonata community is incredible and amazing. You're offering group coaching
Yep.
every week for a price that's stupid, but it's very
My way of giving back is
yeah, and
is what it is.
exactly, and it's offering group coaching, monthly exercises, activities, whatever you want to call them, a private community online for women who are going through life transitions, which looks like anything from you're getting married, you're getting divorced, you're having kids, your kids are leaving, you're becoming a caregiver for a parent or a relative, there's a death in the family, which unfortunately there's a lot
A
of that
lot of death.
right now. We won't go into anything about why. Any sort of transition, maybe a career transition, maybe you're moving up the ladder, maybe you lost your job, you got a new job. All of those things come with new challenges that you may need a little bit of help with. And what I love the most about this community and what you're doing is you're bringing fun back into it, because so much of mindset work and trauma work and shadow and light work and all of that, all
Heavy.
of it has become so heavy, and it's become this huge process and difficult process and hard thing to do, and it doesn't have to be. And so I love that your focus here is about bringing fun into it, because it makes the process easier. It just does.
Yeah.
And so I
Nice.
had to talk about this because I just love what you're doing.
Yes.
So if anyone is interested in this, go to mokeshagrace.com/community. You'll be able to see, everything that's included. People can sign up for a month, try it out, or sign up monthly on a recurring basis. You can sign up for a year, whatever works for you. And that's the other part of it I love. But
Yeah. And Tia, moving to Colorado and starting a business, that would be under the the scope of a major life transition. So
Yeah.
definitely, get in contact with me. And Krista,
Mm-hmm.
how do you help people, and how can people find you to get that help that they need?
Yeah, so you guys can find me at wickedwisdomconsulting.com. While I am still doing consulting services, I have shifted a little bit. I am craving to get back into the leadership part of being with a team.